All right, class, we're going to do this video in the front yard today so that we can avoid the chorus of crows coming from the backyard. You'll probably still be able to hear them, but hopefully they won't be quite so nerve-wracking and distracting. Today I want to go over the semiotic method again. Now this video is designed for my 1101 class, but if you're in my 1102 class, you can also use this video. You'll just have to watch the video that we're talking about, which I will link in the description. But this is going to show you how to use the semiotic method to generate sign, significance, so what, on the basis of a movie clip. In this case, I think it's like 4 or 5 minutes long. I can't really remember the exact time. So it's called the Godfather baptism scene. And many of you have probably seen The Godfather. It's an American classic film. It's about 3 hours long, so don't go pull it off the shelf until you're done with school, but if you haven't seen it. But it's a great film, and it involves a crime family, an Italian mob family called the Corleone family. And at the end of the film, near the end of the film, there's a scene that is very famous. It's called the baptism scene. And in this scene, a child is baptized during the same time that a series of murders are being carried out on the order of his godfather. Of course, the godfather in the case of the baptism is the person that says the words on behalf of the infant. Catholics, of course, baptize infants for a number of different doctrinal reasons. But so what we're going to do is we're going to go through a series of signs, and we're going to talk about their significance and a possible so what. So the first sign I have is the baby itself. Wah! Okay, you see I got illustrations for you. The baby is itself a sign. How can a baby be a sign? Well, if I ask you what does a baby represent, I bet you all have the same knee-jerk response, and that is innocence. The baby represents innocence, but not just innocence, innocence amid evil, okay? This is an innocent child that is born to a crime family. His uncle is the boss, has just become the boss of the Corleone crime family, okay? So he is an innocent baby, but he is born into a situation where the people around him are not innocent at all. In fact, they're quite wicked. And so that is the way that we could draw a significance. What does that mean? Well, if you go back to a discussion we had in 1101, we talked about free will versus determinism over the course of 1 or 2 classes. We brought it up several times. The idea between free will and determinism is, if you're in the free will camp, you believe that all beings, specifically human beings, have free agency and they can make choices, and so they're completely free beings, and there's no sense of destiny or determinism, as they would call it. Your actions are not predetermined. Your actions are the product of your own personal will, which you make of a conscious choice. This is a very popular idea, but it's an idea that really doesn't hold up very well, in my opinion, when you really subject it to scrutiny. If you want to look at some more resources on this, I can tell you, send you in the direction of some interesting talks. But so the idea is that this situation with this baby, he is caught in his circumstance. He is an innocent baby, but he is born into a crime family. The odds are this baby is going to grow up to be a member of that crime family, a functioning member, right? Doing something. He may inherit it one day, we don't know. But that is a product of his circumstance. He didn't choose to be born to a crime family. Now you could say, well, he can choose to leave his family, but the film addresses that too. If you watch the film in its entirety, at the start of the film, Michael, who is the godfather in this case and who is saying the oath for the baby, is considered the good boy at the start of the film. And he is protected by Vito, who tries to keep him out of the family business. As you can see, it doesn't really work out. The situation that he is in, the absolute necessity of his devotion to family and his devotion to the sort of their way of life, it draws him back in the end. And try as he might, he can't stay away. He's the only one that can actually do it also. He's the only one with the brains to do it. They go over this in the film. So this argues for determinism as a cause of crime. The baby born into the Corleone family has no choice to be born into the Corleone family. He will be raised in a crime family. He will be exposed to crime, and there's no way for the baby, especially when he is not a free-thinking adult, to free will himself out of that situation. It's just not possible. So this actually shows us that there are deterministic causes of crime, and that we should consider them, especially when we address crime as a society. Okay, next sign, the baptism. Okay. So the baptism functions as a camouflage for the crimes of the mob, and it does. It's a great alibi, a baptism. Where were you on the night of the, well, I was at my nephew's baptism. You can't come up with a better alibi than that, right? Oh, you must be a great guy. So the significance is that this is being used as a cover, as a camouflage, both literally in terms of an alibi and figuratively in terms of the way they are presenting themselves versus the way that they actually are. This is a disguise. Specifically, it is a disguise based around religion. I'm not trying to criticize religion in general, but it may be a commentary on how religion can be misused, right? So we go into the so what. It comments on the artificial nature of appearances in the U.S. And it also could comment on the perversion of faith that takes place on behalf of a lot of people who are more opportunistic than they are true believers. Both of these could be developed somehow in the claims, but the idea that appearances are artificial. If you think about this, we see this in politics all the time. People put on a face, they put on a demeanor, and that demeanor may or may not represent who they really actually are. So the film, by showing you this man in this sort of, this baptism going on, the film is suggesting that you should consider actions over appearances, that you should do the extra work to figure out what a person is doing instead of just relying on what they say, because ultimately, if you do that, you'll have a better perspective of the truth. Very cynical worldview, but in my experience, cynical is usually not wrong. You may disagree, that's okay, we can disagree. And then the final sign kind of ties in with the last sign, but it's Michael's renunciation of Satan, specifically the verbal renunciation of Satan. So Michael renounces Satan in the video while he is committing acts of murder. So what does that mean? It means it undermines the value of public words and oaths. So on the one hand, we can see this in just a familial sense. He's not a man of his word, right? His words don't matter to him, obviously. But we can also see this if we interpret him to be a representative of public life, which we can, because mobs are generally very connected with politics and other things like that. And so they are public figures. They do serve a public role. The mob boss serves a protective role in the Italian community, which we see at the beginning of the film, which may or may not be exaggerated from reality. But in any case, they do have a public function. And so they are kind of like, I wouldn't call them politicians, but there's a way in which they are political, in which they are public. And so the words that they project in public are not to be trusted. It undermines the value of public words and oaths. It doesn't really matter what you say, right? If what you do is against what you say, then what you say doesn't really matter. So this brings us to the so what, which is, it encourages viewers to value and interpret action over words in American public life and social discourse, okay? When people speak, they can sound quite good. But when they go home, what do? Do they uphold what they say in public, or do they do something else in the shadows, and they use that sort of speech and those words as a disguise or a veil to prohibit you from seeing their true actions? Again, very cynical, but in my experience, cynical is usually right. So this is very cool how the film shows us this. It shows you to distrust words and to distrust the words of public actors and people who serve a function in the community. Now again, cynicism, I understand people's reluctance to embrace cynicism on the whole, but this film is a very cynical film, I think, and I think it gives us a lot of interesting views as to how this situation and that particular predicament with mobs and their role in America, how that actually functions. So hopefully this video has been useful. Again, if you're in my 1101, you know all this already, you've done a discussion on it. If you're in my 1102, watch in the description, hopefully you have already, watch the video and try to apply what I've said to the scene going on. Try to see how I used signs, things that I could point to derive significance, and then developed a so what about it. The so what factor is why you should care. Why do we care about this? In the case of The Godfather, we care about it because we're Americans, and our society has been shaped in part by the things that this film is dealing with. And so we should care about it, and we should apply that to our own understanding of reality. It's easier when you have a direct connection to the source of the, to the context of the film or the text that you're reading, because then the so what is easy. If you have to think about the Renaissance or something that you don't understand, it's harder. But these texts, The Matrix, Fight Club, all the stuff that I've assigned here at the last semester for both of my classes, they apply to you. The so what will be the context that relates to American life, the technological revolution. In Fight Club, it'll be consumer society, all that stuff. You have a connection to it. So the so what should be much easier to deduce. You don't have to do a lot of homework, and you don't have to do a lot of reading of history. So that's all I got to you for this video. I'm going to try to produce some more stuff before the essay is due. Please keep an eye out for that. The discussion will be posted by this evening. I apologize for the delay, but let's be honest, none of you are going to do it today anyway, with the exception of like maybe one or two people. So I will have that up when that is up, which could be at any point through the day. I will send you an email and let you know, and then you can begin at your leisure. Thank you very much. I hope you are staying healthy and sane. See you later.